You're listening to the Beans and Dice podcast, a podcast about how we game.
Hey folks, welcome to the Friday, once a month RPG live call-in show / podcast recording thing. I'm not even sure what to call it, but I'm your host Carlos, and with me today, my co-host, coming from Lutz, Florida.
I'm Wayne. Yeah, I'm Wayne. That's me.
And continuing to show up, we don't know why, but he still shows up. I'm surprised he still likes us. Our man William from the Nerdyweds. William, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. We are without our wingman, or my normal wingman, Rob. So we got the Rob chair in case we ever have to ask Rob any questions about RPGs. Right, Rob? Yes, I love RPGs. See
Yep.
how that works? But we did not. We're not able to get our friend Ron with us today. Ron Fraser at Tabletop. Ron Talks Tabletop. That's the show that he's from. He's not going to be able to join us today. My hope is that he can pop in at least once to say hi. So, Ron, that goes out to you. If you get a moment and you have the capacity and ability, you have the link, pop in and say hi. But today, we're going to talk to you a little bit about, we'll start off with what we've been up to gaming-wise, right? Kind of catch you all up. It's been a month since we talked with y'all. And then also go into a little conversation about RPG adjacent board gaming or tabletop gaming, other types of games that kind of give you that feels of an RPG or maybe scratch some of the itches that an RPG would scratch. So that'll be our topic, and we'll be talking about that while we take your phone calls. But to start it up, what have we been up to lately? So Wayne, any RPG adjacent or games being played?
I think not any actual RPGs in the last month. Just been busy. I mean, we talked about it on Thursday's show. I got my wife and kid are in a show. They're in the Sound of Music this month, and then kids got soccer camp like crazy. So it's just been crazy. So no actual RPGs. Although I am getting ready to dust off an RPG adjacent board game, which we'll talk about later. Pick that back up as a family. For me and my wife, she's been doing Diablo the original and playing that on her Twitch streams, and then I've been diving back into Pillars of the Earth. Now, Pillars of the Earth is a RPG, sort of a video game, and it was adjacent to it's like kind of like Baldur's Gate, if you ever played Baldur's Gate, and it was a Kickstarted game, and then there's a new one. Problem is I've now 3/4 of the way played the entire game twice, or third time almost now, because I'll play it. It's like 300-400 hours of gameplay easy, right? Type of game. And I'll get 250 hours in and then just like stop playing because I get distracted with something else, and then come back to it like 6 months to a year later, and I have no recollection of where I am, what I'm doing. So I'm like, let's just start over. So I'm on like my third restart of the game. And
that happened to me with Red Dead Redemption. Like I reset and restarted that game at least a half dozen times.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't remember where I was. What was I doing? Next thing I know, I'm sitting on a rock, on a boulder, shooting vultures for like hours. I know the feeling, Wayne. Now, you said it's called Pillars of the Earth. There's a board game called Pillars of the Earth.
Yeah, that's based on the Ken Follett books, The Pillars of the Earth, and it was like a TV miniseries based on them as well. But this is a different
video game in that same world.
No, totally different.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I'm said Pillars of the Earth. Good Lord, you're right. No, it's Pillars of Eternity. Good Lord,
there are a lot of pillars out there. That's what it's plural.
So the board game and the book, Ken Follett books, that's Pillars of the Earth. The video game I'm playing is Pillars of Eternity.
Oh, okay.
Different story. Yes. So, but it's fun. I mean, if you are looking to kind of quasi understand, D&D Pathfinder-ish rules and building a party, and it's point and click. You have a party, and you go into towns, you talk to people, you get quests. There's an overarching story arc. You level up. So it's almost like if you're into video gaming, you haven't played it, it's good. And if you haven't gotten into RPGs and you want to get a flavor of what it would be like to the mechanics of an RPG and how it works, then that's a good way to start, I think, if you don't have a game group to actually dive into an actual RPG. So
very good. William, any gaming going on this last month since we last met?
Oh, I've been mainly aside from some board game stuff, been really addicted to Diablo 4. So been on that for a few days and up to almost level 50 on one of the characters solo. It's not too bad.
Still very much kick butt, take loot.
Yeah, it's a loot pinata like it's always been. It's a good time. I really enjoy it. And I have to tell you, the campaign story is really good and very well acted on all the characters. And they did voice acting for every single side quest, every interaction with random NPCs that you can click on them and interact with them is voice acted. And it's all really good. But as far as the tabletop thing, no, there hasn't been any of that in the last month as far as role playing.
That's okay. At the end of the day, we're omni gamers. We seek that entertainment in all mediums. Is that a word? Medium?
Yeah.
Formats. Whatevs.
Now you've been playing.
I've been playing. I was gonna say I actually played RPG.
Yeah, you've been the most busy out of all of us.
I spent the month of May and June playing D&D Adventure League, I think they call it, at Armada Games. I think I shared a little bit about that. So my son started it off because they only had like one seat available in May for most of those games. I'm sorry, in April. So I started with him, and then I added myself in May, and then this June, I was able to get 5 of us around the table there because my buddy Mike, his son Michael, and his stepdaughter Adriana, and then my son Gabe and myself, 5 of us, partied up and joined the table, and they got to play their first game of D&D. The kids did. Mike has played D&D with me growing up as kids, so he and I have grown up playing D&D together, but he's never played 5e, and he really wanted his kids to experience it, so we got to check that box, and we had a good time. I found it to be. It's been good. All my experiences at Armada Games eventually have been great. Let me stop there. Stop, right? Full stop. But having the majority of the party, 5 out of the 6 of us, to be friends, just made it better, right? It just enhanced it because our jokes were ours. Our inside jokes, our family fun. We got to share those experiences together versus meeting a different group of people each time I showed up for Adventure League. Not saying that's a bad thing. It's just, it's different. So really good time, but I'm struggling because of the combat in D&D. And I don't know. I feel like at 6 players, it takes so long to get through a combat encounter that my ADD kicks in and I'm all like Space Cadet.
I think that's a pretty fair assessment. I think, once you hit more than the standard 4 party and you get 5-6 people and once you get past a couple of levels, you hit that 4th, 5th, 6th level, then you're talking about, you have different abilities and tons of spells and people are thinking and the sort of dynamic nature of a combat scene. It's hard to plan ahead sometimes because it can change pretty rapidly. So
and
I
you
think
get your min-maxers in there too, and
who go crazy.
They'll come in and just like one-shot something, and then I'm all like, "Oh, you took a hit. You're Half-Life."
Yeah, whatever. So what's interesting? I certainly we'll circle back to that, but I wanted to. So what's cool that I think you glossed over a little bit is so you got to play in a D&D table with your friend who you used to play D&D with when you were kids, and you have your kids at the table. That's got to be pretty cool, right? You guys.
You're right. That. Like I hit an achievement.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's pretty damn cool. How did now your son Gabe had been playing with you for a month or so, and now your other friend kids, this was their first time. How did they had they played RPGs before? What did they, what was their experience that night, or what did you think their experience?
The stepdaughter is the one that really asked to make this happen. She had never played a role playing game before, but she's a geek. She's into like that anime world. She goes to the anime cons. What's the one we have here in Tampa?
We have Tampa
MetroCon.
You have Tampa MetroCon.
She'll go to those and enjoy the cosplay and the anime side of it, but has never joined into an RPG game. She already had a character. She's made multiple characters already on her own, Like she's been adjacent to that life and has always wanted to step into it, but I think she was nervous about it. Right? She's very shy, very introvert. So just finding that group of friends, she's homeschooled. So finding that group of friends that she could get in with just hasn't happened. So we made it happen. Now Michael's son, him and my second boy are the same age, similar age. They're both high schoolers, 11th grade. He's more cool guy, right? Like not for me type of thing, but I'm willing to hang out with dad and do stuff. So he's willing to give it a try. So it was very hard pulling him in. He named his character Flash. So every time the DM would say, all right, what does Flash do? Or, hey, Flash, the table would go, ah. We do the theme song to Flash. And Michael would never join in. The DM was like, listen, next time we do that, if you jump in, you get inspiration. And Michael's like, no, not doing it. Like, no. Flash walks across the boat and punches the guy. All right, well, you killed the Shark Man thing. I can't remember the name of it now. You killed the Shark Man thing. Do you want to describe its death? It dies and then it falls off the boat. It was very much that. So that was Michael. But Adriana, she was getting into it. Like, I've never seen her come out of her shell like that. She's always been so quiet around us. She was starting to act it because I was starting to act it. Like I was like, I felt like, okay, I am second most experienced gamer at this table because there's the DM, then there's the guy Evans, cool guy. He's played a lot and he RPGs his stuff. So I'm like, normally I don't RPG it much. I tell you, I role play, ROLL play. But I figured with Adriana there, she wants that experience. I hammed it up. I had to ham it up. I had to act it out. I had to be like, oh, well, I walk across there, and I did the voices and all the fun stuff. So then she started doing it, and it just got more fun.
Well, that's, we talked about, like, so in the podcast, Mitchell and I talked a couple weeks ago about that magic circle, right? And you bought into it, right? And changed your play style to ensure that that group was having fun. Now the older boy, he was grumpy, he wants to be the cool guy. He didn't buy into the circle, right? He didn't buy into it, but you did. And you hammed it up more than you normally do. And probably you'll think back on it and go, man, I had fun there doing something that I don't normally do myself. And you fed off of the girls' enjoyment of it, which is cool. Yeah. That's what RPGs can do. Go ahead, William.
It kind of reminds me of, I've only gone to a couple wars with the Society for Creative Anachronism. And hey, Ron says he can join for a bit.
Awesome.
I've only gotten to go to a couple wars, but they always have this post revelry, the post party every night where you're sitting around a fire, you're drinking mead, you're drinking ales, you're just hamming it up, and you have that magic moment where you forget that it's the year X and you're looking around a campfire of all these people dressed in their garb with their armor and their weapons, and everybody's talking about the battles they won that day or how badly they died that day. And you have that magic moment of, I'm there right now. And sometimes stepping out of your comfort zone within a gaming scenario can really elevate your experience, And usually the more introverted people that find things like role-playing games and social deduction games as a way of getting out of their shell, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And I didn't want to be the speed bump, knowing that I already had to deal with so many new players at the table, younger players at the table. If I didn't lead by example, we could have had a very dull night. So yeah, we had fun. We had a good time. So that was my play. Hello, Ron Frazier. Thanks for popping in, Poppy. I don't know if you can stay forever or for long, but we'll take you as long as we got you. We'll take you muted too.
We can't hear you, bro. You are muted.
Didn't want anything. Didn't want you guys to hear anything that might not have been. But we're good now. We're good now. So I'll be on for as long as I can.
We're just updating the folks at home with what we've been doing game wise since we last met up a month ago. All three of us have gone around. Did you want to talk about any RPGs or even other games that you've played since we've last come together? About 3 minutes before we open the phone lines.
Yeah, so a couple of things. Number one, I finished up my Star Wars game using the EZV6 system, and that was a blast. And me and my Friday night group, we'll go back to that. After a little while, we're going to switch back to a fantasy sword and sorcery game using a game called Shadow Dark. So that'll be fun. But also last weekend, I spent the entire weekend with a group playing 13th Age. Basically, I played a campaign over the course of a weekend that I homebrewed. Like, pulled in some elements from some different adventures from some other RPGs, but we ran it using the 13th Age system, which is really like a blend of D&D 3rd edition and 4th edition mechanics. Actually, the lead designers for D&D 3rd and D&D 4th edition designed 13th Age. So it's a little, I would say that like it's more or less a traditional D&D game with some story game elements, and it's pretty neat. So you have these major NPCs in the default setting. They're called icons, and those major NPCs, those icons, they lead a faction or factions that are loyal to them, and those factions play a big part in in whatever story that you put out. And like, there's a mechanic where you roll some dice, and like if you roll a 6, that if you have a tie to that icon, that icon faction can come into play in the story, and it's a really neat little game. That's one of the big things, and so there's not like this tactical grid style combat. Well, combat can be tactical without the grid, but the combat is more abstract instances, which is like my preference. I don't necessarily like counting squares, but I do like having the spatial representation. I do like playing with minis and whatnot and everything like that. So we got together Friday. We played Friday night. We came back together on Saturday around 12. Ate lunch as we started our session. We played till like about 8:30, 9 o'clock Saturday night.
Wow.
And then we had a little bit of we had a dinner break in there, but still, like, good old that old school all day gaming marathon. That's pretty cool. And then we got together Sunday afternoon and we finished up the campaign over the weekend. It was a blast. So that's what I've been doing in the RPG space.
Nice, really cool.
Well, let's open up the phone lines for anyone that wants to pop in and join us on the phone lines. 813-618-7099 is the number. This is a different podcast than what you're used to, or stream show than what you're used to, because here we take your phone call and let you take over the show for 5-10 minutes during your call, and you become the host, and you ask questions, and you provide updates on what you've been up to, which is what we're all about here at Beans and Dice. It's about how we game, and that's the proverbial we, the everyone we, the whole community. So join in, talk to us about what you've been up to gaming-wise. Ron, we did have that original topic that you had brought to us, but with the situation at home, we felt it was best to save that topic for the next round, because I don't want to miss you in it unless you're committed to staying the whole show. It's up to you.
Let's put that off to the next month.
My man. So what we're doing is we pivoted, and the topic du jour today is going to be games that are adjacent to RPG. So that RPG world, either they give you the feels of it or they scratch an itch for RPGing, right? When you're not playing role-playing games, what board games or other tabletop games do you come in with that you bring in to help scratch that itch for you? And what we'll do is we'll just go round robin, right? We'll go clockwise, how it is here. I'll start us off, and if we all throw in one game at a time and we can comment on that game, and if you go last, someone might steal your game, so start off with your favorites before you pop in, because someone could steal it from you. I'm going to start off with a game that I just played this week, since I already talked about it during yesterday's board game call-in show, but I'm going to bring it back. It's the Brady Sadler, Adam Sadler titles. I would say titles both, because it's from FFG. One is called Warhammer Quest, the adventure card game, but the sequel to it, the subsequent game after they lost the Games Workshop licenses, is called Heroes of Terranoff. It's the same game, just reskinned to their Terranoff world, and it's an adventure card game where the players up to 1 to 4 players playing 2 to 4 characters are going to go on an adventure. You're going to have a quest card. That card's going to say who the bad guy is, how you defeat them, and to give you a little story on what you're doing. So, for example, the first one is the goblins, and you're going to need to find and defeat Splig, the king of the goblins, right? You're in an inn, and a weary traveler comes in, beat up and cut, talking about the goblins that are attacking on the roads and how they have a king named Splig. And then the way the game plays out is each player has a character, either like a scout, which is like a ranger, a wizard, or a fighter, or a healer, like a paladin. And then that character is going to have 4 action cards. Each card is going to be either an attack. They're going to be, all 4 of them are attack, explore, aid, and rest. And each time you use a card, you have to tap that card. So you can't go back to that action again until you take a rest action, which allows you to reset your cards. And then those cards themselves, the progression in the game is as you progress, as you move forward, you get to choose replacement cards for those actions to improve them, to specialize them, to make them be more barbarian-like or more paladin-like. And then you can choose a different class to level up in. And as you're going, you're leveling up those 4 cards to make your character better. The game is going to have a stack of location cards. Each location card gets flipped, and it has the narrative on what location you're at and how many exploration points are needed on that card in order to move past that card to the next location. When you go to a location, you spawn baddies. Each card, each location says there are this many baddies engaged with you, and there are this many baddies in the middle of the board and called in the shadows, face down. They're kind of hiding. You don't know who they are or what they're doing. So you deal out those cards, and every player is going to get a card engaged with them based on the number that the location says. And then as you start fighting, you're going to be engaging by bringing baddies to you in front of you so you can have melee attacks with them. Or you might be a wizard or a scout and you want to push them away into the shadows so you can then pop off with your either magic missile or your archery. Right? So all these different ways to do that. And the aid card, the aid action, allows you to assist your peers by giving them successes that they can use for when they're rolling dice to resolve actions. And it allows them to untap cards or actions that they've taken. So you're kind of doing that synergy of, okay, I'm going to use my aid action, Wayne, because I'm going to give your fighter the ability to untap his attack action. And then I'm going to use this to push another character on you. So now you have 2 baddies on you. And because your card is so cool, it lets you hit twice to 2 characters in front of you. You start doing all those synergies together. And then eventually when you get to the last location, that's usually the Nemesis lair, and then the big baddie comes out, who's been sitting in his lair for the first adventures, the Goblin King Splig, and then you bring Splig in, and he brings his posse, and then you just beat him up to win the game. Or escort missions, or find something missions. They're all very narrative. So that, to me, is a fun way to play a board game, tabletop game, on a, not even a 3x3 board. Like, you need like maybe a 2.5 foot table space to be able to play this whole adventure on. So if not a lot, and the box is it's a small box. It's FFG did a lot of these small silver line boxes almost. It's maybe 10 by 10 inches and maybe 2.5, 3 inches deep. So it's something you can throw in your backpack and have a whole RPG feel board game to take with you. So that to me is my first game that I'm going to bring up. Anybody play any of the games in the Sadler universe? They're big co-op makers.
Can't say that I have, actually.
Neither have I. It sounds really cool, though.
Yeah. It's on the list.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't either, but yeah, they're on my list of games to play. Because I was just in Street Masters and Street Masters.
I think they did do that.
Brook City.
That's them, right?
Street Masters. Yep, Street Masters in Brook City. Which has a cop themed game. So they did some pretty cool stuff, thematic stuff.
And they just announced this week Dragon Quest, I think they call it. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I talked about it on the show last night. Here's a plug. Go watch our show last night. They just announced that they're going to work with Dragon Cult Studios to create another game in that lineage, that same style of 4 actions that get upgraded. So they're coming out with more because FFG just dropped it. They just stopped doing it, which is really upsetting because I really got into it because I expected, like they did with Warhammer Quest, the adventure card game, packs of characters that you can buy and maybe new classes for the characters so you can specialize them differently, but that never happened. But we'll go to Wayne.
I think so I'm gonna maybe focus on some of the RPGs that my wife and I are using, or RPG like games that we are introducing to our son or have played with our son. And I'm gonna talk about beginning of the show. I hinted that I'm gonna be dusting off a game that we had started, never finished, and that is Stuffed Fables, a Jerry Hawthorne game. And we played probably about half of it.
I think my copy's at Rob's house. I went to go grab it, but I think it's at Rob's house.
Yeah,
that's a great one.
It's a great one. We probably played about half of it at the beginning of the pandemic, and then just got sidetracked and never got back to it. And we have the expansion, the Oh Brother expansion. And so, and Ron, if you've not played Stuffed Fables, I know you have a couple of little girls. This is a game that I think you'll like. You should get and maybe think about playing with them when they're maybe I don't know how old they are, but maybe a year or two away. But anyway, so Stuffed Fables, you play stuffed animals that, at night you come alive, and your goal in life is to protect the little kid that in your room, right? So
it's like the Andy of Toy Story, protect your kid.
Yeah. And so it's a storybook game, so that the whole game is in a book, and you basically flip through and play through the missions. And just for example, like the first mission is you're stuffies, you're the stuffed animals, and you're defending a little girl who's spending her first night in her big girl bed. Like, so she's out of the crib and staying on the bed, and the little kind of evil monsters come out from under the bed, and they're defending, and you get to role play that. And like when we play with our son, we would kind of play up our characters. Like I would play like this little teddy bear with a sword and brave, and and my so we really like that. And so there's maybe 10 or 12 missions in the first game. And then there's an expansion called Oh Brother, which has now the little girl has a younger brother, and the stuff he's now helping defend the little brother from the creatures under the bed and things like that. So it's a really narrative based game. It's all inclusive. You're kind of rolling dice to do missions and move along the board, and it's a really fun little game. We really enjoyed it. 2018, and Jerry Hawthorne's done other games, which I don't know if anyone's going to talk about, but Mice and Mystics is one of his first big games. He also worked on Heroescape.
Same company, Plaid Hat Games.
Plaid Hat Games. Yep.
Colby over at Plaid Hat is the one that publishes games.
Yep. And he also worked on Heroescape, so he's got a kind of a good pedigree of RPG adjacent gaming. So. Yeah, that's the first one I would talk about is Stuffed Fables. We're going to get back to that probably in the next month or so. I'm going to put it back on the table and just set it up. And okay, guys, let's get back and finish the campaign.
I love it because the wound tokens, Ron, are little cotton balls, like little cotton puffs. So as they start losing stuffing, that's them bleeding out. It's awesome.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It's a good game.
I don't know if you have, what's that Howie Mandel movie when we were kids with the monsters under the bed?
Wasn't it Howie Mandel and Fred Savage?
Fred Savage, yes. Howie Mandel, Fred Savage. Oh, and they had he had the blue horns and whatnot. He was blue with horns, and they lived under the beds. Anyway, that's the feel I got from playing Stuffed Fables, like that universe where you go under the bed and there's like this world of monsters down there, of scary stuff.
So yeah, Little Monsters.
Little Monsters, that's the film.
Yeah.
If you're looking for some fluff film to go with it.
Yeah. So that's the first one I would talk about.
And we'll keep going round robin until we run out or until somebody calls us to tell us we're idiots. William, any board game adjacent games that you want to bring, or RPG adjacent games you want to bring up?
He's on mute.
He might be on mute. He's shaking his hands at me.
I was on mute. All right. The first one I want to talk about, it's going to be kind of an interesting one to put on the list because the game that it's kind of related to doesn't really give an RPG feel. And that is Blood on the Clock Tower. I've been loving the hell out of this game. I've been running this game. I've been the storyteller for this game several times now. And every person at the table has a role to play. And that's where it puts it kind of in an RPG kind of thing, right? Each person's trying to suss out who the demon is at the table or in the circle, and everybody's trying to play a role in figuring that out. And they're utilizing their abilities and just their intuitions to get more information, make alliances, stab people in the back. It's really good fun. So that one, it plays up to 20 players. I would never take it above 15, mainly because the number of players that are given regular abilities is 15, and the rest of the other 5 are what are called travelers. Travelers are really cool because unlike a werewolf, which is the game that's mostly based on, once the game starts, nobody can join, nobody can leave. Kind of ruins the game if people start coming and going. Well, travelers allow somebody who knows they can't stay for the whole game to have a role, play the role in the game, but they have no bearing on whether or not the good guys win or lose. They don't get a vote. So cool. Travelers can come and go. But every single player gets a role, and the other big difference between that and the werewolf is werewolf, when you die, you're dead. Whereas in Blood on the Clock Tower, when you die, you're just an angry, talkative spirit who gets one more vote before the end of the game.
Nice.
You get to keep playing. You still win or lose based on your team, but you lose your special ability. So if you had a reoccurring ability that would activate every night or during the day, you lose that. And you get a death token that gets flipped over to the death side with a vote token placed on top of that. And you get to use that one time. And often the dead players are the ones who decide who wins the game. So that is Blood on the Clock Tower. Phenomenal game. They got the it's not a cheap game though.
So I think
retails.
You said storyteller. So the moment you open up with and the storyteller, it's an RPG kind of game, right? You're going to be telling a story, people are going to be interacting. And I played a lot of werewolf back in the day, 5, 10, 15, whatever years ago. And I got burnt out on it because people started taking it so seriously that like one round would take an hour or 2 hours. And if you're the first one to get killed or be taken out, unless there's another group getting ready to start that you can jump into, then you're just sitting around for like an hour and a half until the game starts up again. And so I got tired of that. I was like, I want a game at a con. I want to play a lot of games. If I get killed real quick, all right, I'm leaving because I'm just gonna go find a board game to play. So that sounds cool. I get eliminated first, but I still get to play, and I think that fixes my biggest complaint. Yeah,
you're neutered, but you're not out.
You're not out.
In fact, the storyteller is the first player who dies every game. So in the description that the storyteller reads, they're reading their own death.
Oh,
and that's what.
If you're finding this letter, it's because I'm dead.
Well, the blood on the clock tower is actually the blood of the storyteller dripping down from the clock tower to the cobblestones. That's where the blood on the clock tower comes from. And then here is a list of roles that every player gets this list, and everybody gets a role. And this is just one of the 3 modules that's included in the base game. The ones that are red are the bad guys. All the blue ones are the good guys. But some of the good guys might even think that they're bad guys. So, it's just different because every player is contributing. Nobody's just a villager. You don't sit around going, well, all I'm doing right now is arguing with people and waiting to be killed, either by the werewolf or my fellow villagers. And there are some roles in the game that want to be killed by the demon or by the villagers.
See, and I disagree when you started with, not really RPG. I think this is the social aspect of the RPG, the ROLE part of the RPG distilled into a game. Mm-hmm. None of the combat, none of the character creation, none of the min-maxing, just straight up social.
Yeah, it's a good game. I really enjoy it. I hate werewolf. but I absolutely love Blood on the Clock Tower, and being the storyteller is hilarious, especially when you see people taking people aside to conspire, and somebody who has a really good idea, unfortunately they're conspiring with the demon, and because you get to see
That's
the behind
excellent.
the scenes.
I like it. Yeah, let's do that.
And you got to stand there and be serious and straight faced this whole time while watching people make really bad life decisions. It's a lot of fun.
Akina
Nice.
popped into the chat. She says Alpha Quadrant Games will be running Blood on the Clock Tower June 24th at their store in Valrico. We plan to go and play if nothing comes up.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't get to play very often, so I'm looking forward to going and actually playing.
And
That's a great
You're gonna
update
try
for
to run
the
a
local folks.
Yeah, you're gonna try to run a game of this at Dice Therese, I hear, right?
Oh, I'm more than willing. If somebody, I'm going to bring it with me.
I've been hearing it in the Discord chat asking about it.
Yeah,
who is it
I'm
that
more than
has
willing.
it? Who can and I'm tagging them in there.
I know that the guy who runs. I'm terrible with names. I don't remember what the guy up in the upper left hand corner's name is. Call
That's
back to
why
last night. But the guy who runs Escape Winter.
Patrick.
I ran.
Oh.
Patrick. I ran
Friend of the
Blood on
show.
Clock Tower Friday and Saturday night at Escape Winter, and he mentioned that he wanted to contact me about maybe doing it for the convention itself. So that'd be good.
Cool.
Sweet.
Ron Frazier, we're going round robin. You're up.
So, as a preamble to this, two things. Number one, like this was a topic that I actually had on my short list for content creation stuff, like board games to RPGs, because like I just, I'm big in the theme, and I think like a good theme can be translated well to an RPG. And this first game is the one that really got me thinking about this. It is a fully cooperative game that is worker placement and some simultaneous selection, and it's called Atlantis Rising. It's a beautiful game. The artist done by an artist named Vincent Dutray, who does some of the most stunning artwork in the board game hobby. And the object of the game is that you are the leaders of Atlantis. And Atlantis, while there's fantasy elements where they believe in the gods and there's all kinds of magic, but they've also delved into technology. And the civilization got to a point where they displeased the gods so much that the gods had enough, and they were going to sink the island. You folks know about the various mythologies about Atlantis, and so what you're trying to do is basically build a Stargate to escape. The island is going to sink. There's nothing that you can do about that. The question is, how many of your folks can you get off of the island? And the cards and all the stuff, there's a lot of good story on the card and situations and whatnot. And I like to play the game solo. And I think it can make a great movie. But it can definitely make a great role-playing game where each player is a member of the High Council, and they have their different resources that they're trying to work together. But like I can see where the different adventures could be. There's a card called Overwhelming Darkness, and maybe you're spending an adventure trying to solve that problem. And there's one called Crisis of Faith, and maybe you're spending.
So there's more than just the resource management game. There's events, there's story aspects.
Exactly. So super thematic, and so that's my first game on this list.
It's a pretty game. I'm looking at it right now on BGG. It's a very pretty game.
I actually, I've actually been, I started thinking about, well, how can I translate this to an RPG because I actually want to run a one shot based on this board game.
It called to mind Survive Escape Atlantis.
Oh, that's a fun one.
Except this looks a little less cutthroat.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's an evil game. It's a cute game, but it's evil.
Yeah.
It's a family game.
It's a family game.
It hurts.
It's like Steve Jackson said. It's one of those games you play with your friend. Well, you find out who your friends are when you're playing it, and they're not the people around the table with you.
When they're moving those monsters, and you got your boat full of people,
and they're pulling the tiles out from underneath your people.
That's why I never get into a boat unless somebody's there with me. I'm not taking any boat by itself. Like, you're coming with me. That's a great callback. Survive, Escape from Atlantis. I have the version redid by Bonacor. What's that? Stronghold Games, when they republished it years ago. That had to be.
They actually have a new one out
years ago.
Survive, Escape, Space Station.
Escape Space Station. Similar idea.
Yeah, it's the same exact game, just reskinned to be a space station that's falling apart.
My next game that I want to bring up that gives me the RPG feels, I was introduced to this game by my buddy Brian Zeno. It's called Legends of Andor, and I also have the one that released last year, I believe it was, Legends of Andor, the family game, like the family version of Legends of Andor. But we got a call coming in.
Ooh,
let's do it. Beans and Dice Podcast. State your name, where you're calling from. Hey, let me try to switch this button again. Ever since I got beer in my phone, it's kind of messed up. Beans and Dice Podcast. State your name, where you're calling from.
This is Kina calling from Tampa.
Hey, Kina.
Hey, I'm sorry to call right when you were getting ready to talk about your second game.
No,
That's what we like.
Okay, so let me pause for a PSA. Okay, it's you know what? Let me get the camera set up here. PSA moment. I'm going solo into the screen. Here we go. Here, PSA moment. There we go. All right, I'm gonna look right into the camera. Listen, folks, it's a call-in show. Okay, you might feel like you're interrupting us, but you're not. The whole show is around you, the caller. Right? We could be middle of conversation. We know where we are. We'll pick it right back up when the call's over. But during these 5-10 minutes when you're here, it's your show. So please call in. Don't be afraid to interrupt, because that's what we do here. It's a call-in show.
Okay, so since that PSA says it's my show, I want
this
to
is
talk
Kina with the
about
Nerdyweds, by the way.
Christmas list and all the games that I want. Starting with the one that William just talked about, he conveniently did not mention to me that there was a new version of Survive Escape Atlantis. So I need that. That's top of the list.
There you go. Christmas in July. William, write it down.
Yes,
if you like sleeping with both eyes closed, write it down.
I'm used to sleeping with one eye open.
I know that the Escape from Atlantis had a Survive had a redo of the reprint, so they spruced it up. They made it better, but I was not aware that there's a space theme version, and space is my jam, aka Michael Jordan. Jam.
I wasn't aware either, and it's his jam as well. So I'm surprised that he didn't mention it. But
we'll fight about this later.
We'll talk about this later.
But you're talking about games you want to put on the wish list. Board games, RPGs? What are you looking for?
I'm looking for above and below because I'm sorry, I'm not close to you guys right now, so y'all can't throw tomatoes at me. I'm not really into RPGs, so I really love the topic that you guys are talking about right now because, this might convince me, this might ease me into it. And a game that I played at Dice Tower a few years ago called Above and Below, it kind of reminds me. Well, William's shaking his head, but it kind of reminds me.
You're gonna see a hand come into William's screen.
It has a storytelling aspect. You start out where you have your village that was just torn apart by barbarians, and you have to rebuild. So you're doing stuff above the ground to rebuild your village, but you can also do stuff below ground because there are caves where you can go down there, get resources, what have you. But part of going down into the cave is where the storytelling aspect comes in. And it's been years since I've played it, so I only played it once at Dice Tower, so I don't remember the details. But I do remember that you could play cards that you end up having to roll a dice to see if you succeed or you fail. And then there's a story that you're told, and you have to make decisions about what you're going to do in that story. And then there's another part where, depending on how you play it or what cards you play, where the opposing players read the story and you make decisions based off what they read, and other players at the table can get involved with the story as well. So that's all I've got because I'm not really into RPGs.
It's on my list
Yes.
to talk about it, so I guess I might get to double tap my list.
Okay, and you'll probably have a better description
No.
of the games than I do.
Ryan Lockett,
Because I only played it that once.
the designer Ryan Lockett, him and his wife, and I think there's a
Fantastic.
documentary. Where's that documentary? Is it YouTube? Is it Amazon?
It's on
it is
both,
there's
yeah.
a documentary
Like
about
on game design.
their whole world building of what they've done. They've made Above and Below,
Near and far, above
Near
and
and Far.
below. There's
Near
a
and
third
Far,
one in
yeah.
that series.
and then more importantly, the one that's on my list, Sleeping Gods. So, Kina, if you're
okay.
not into that RPG world, any Ryan Lockett title is going to give you world building, world exploration, world feel without that tabletop RPG piece that maybe you're not so into. Sleeping Gods is I wouldn't call it a sandbox game, but it's a map exploration game. You're going to have these spiral bound books that have maps on them, and you're on in a world on a ship exploring this world, kind of this 20s 30s feel to it. I would say, do you remember the King Kong movie with Jack Black? Kind of
Yeah.
that feel to it.
Like a
That's
Hollow
what it
Earth.
feels like. Yeah, Hollow Earth, Journeys to the Center of the Earth. You know, there's monsters out there. You just got to go find them. And you're exploring different islands, trying to fulfill the story, trying to complete the missions, and having to go and explore different parts of the world. He just makes it simple to world explore, to progress your character, to do all the things we love doing in RPGs, but in his beautiful world. So
it's
Above
crazy
and
to
Below is
me.
a great call
Yeah.
out.
A huge one. What's crazy to me is Ryan Lockett and his wife. They're the designers, the creators, the artists, the publishers. Like usually somebody's either an artist or they're the publisher. Like this guy and his wife, they do everything, top to bottom. They do everything in the game. It's crazy to me how talented that must be.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I was about to say, like, they're the equivalent of like somebody like Magic Johnson, like somebody who can literally play all 5 positions on the court in basketball, you know, and has done so at some point in time. Yeah, they're just amazing.
Or it's even like or like Bo or Dion, where they're playing football and baseball, and
Yeah.
it's like they're doing everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There are
And
5 positions in basketball.
Yeah.
And they do it as a husband and wife team. I struggle to do Thanksgiving dinner together without killing each other. Like, how do you do this?
It's like my
Great call
favorite
out, Kate.
narrators, Michael Kramer and Kate Redding, their husband and wife team.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. They do some of Sanderson stuff.
Keena and I can barely do a YouTube channel together before she tries to murder me.
At least it's on video. You have evidence.
Keep me out of her kitchen, though.
Oh,
Yeah, Sleeping
he
Gods is a
does
game
have
that I want to
evidence.
play. I want to get into Sleeping Gods. This game looks pretty cool.
Hey, it's
Oh,
still
yeah.
on my shelf. Like, it's still right behind me. It's right here. Here's Sleeping Gods, right here behind me. It's a great title. Myself, Dan, Rob, and actually the game belongs to Nick Oben. It's Nick's game, sitting on my shelf. But you're moving that boat around, taking actions, and you're maintaining the boat. You're hitting storms, so you got to fix the boat. Then you go on an island, and it's being pillaged. The village is being pillaged. Do you stop and try to help the villagers, or do you just like take their stuff when nobody's looking? And we voted, and we decided for chaos, thanks to Dan, and we let the village burn, and we just took what was left afterwards. But then there's consequences for that. Like, you become a bad guy. So it's so cool. So cool.
Yeah,
So is this one a collaborative game?
It is a co-op. It's full co-op.
Okay. Okay.
yeah. And that's the thing about these games. Like these thematic cooperative games that like are heavily story based. You're halfway there to a role playing game. Really. So that's cool.
Yeah, you'll hit different islands, and it'll be like, do you have this card, right? And it might be a keyword, right? And if you do, it says go to this page, read this. If you don't, go to another page. So then that gives you that hint, like, ooh, we're missing something. If we had these special stones, when we come back to that island, we'll get a different story than we got the first time. It might open up something. We can finally find Captain Willie's, treasure.
Oh yeah, that one has a lot of table presence. I definitely would want to play that.
Well, good shout out, good call, and keep the wish list coming.
Well, that's all I've got. I just wanted to call in, make sure this was a call-in show tonight.
Yeah, love it. Thank you so much.
I'm gonna let you guys get back to it, and as always, I'm enjoying what you guys are talking about.
Much appreciated. Thanks for the feedback.
Thank you.
All right.
Let's see. Now I want
Later.
Sleeping Gods.
Bye.
Yeah. Now I want
That's
Sleeping
all right.
Gods, and like it's expensive right now. Damn it.
It is. Yeah, we keep saying we got to get it back to the table. Got to get back to the table. We have to get it back to the table. So I guess that's my game. That was my game. Wayne, back to you.
Back to me. Hey yo. I'm gonna tell. All right. So again, I think when we talk about narrative and you talk about a GM and sort of the GM running a game and then the players playing against the GM, I think you got to think the Descent system. Journeys in the Dark, second edition. I mean, the game's been around. It's got like 3 or 4 different versions. It was re-implemented as Star Wars Imperial Assault. So it's this. You have a dungeon and you have a game world where there's a GM or really the bad guy, and you're trying to kill the players that are going into the dungeon. So I think that right there is the classic quintessential, D&D dungeon dive. So Descent, Journeys in the Dark. I mean, it's, I think Ron's got his hand up. He wants to jump in. What do you got, Ron?
Yeah. So Realms of Terranoth. It's already out there.
What is that now?
Descent is set in the setting of Terranoth.
Okay.
Right.
There's a book, Realms of Terranoth. It's that setting that you can play in conjunction with the Genesis RPG system.
Okay. So you got because I played
I might
played Descent.
I may have the title wrong.
No, I found it. Realms of Terranoth.
Realms of Terranoth, yeah.
Because
I played Runebound was also on my list as another game. Runebound and Descent are the games that we played back in the day that are just, it's D&D. The Runebound is you're traveling through the game world, figuring out everything, and Descent is you're going into the dungeon. So those two games combined is like it's a D&D campaign in 2 board games.
That's cool.
24-page booklet scenario guide that runs through Descent, Runebound, and Rune Wars, which were all, I think I mentioned this yesterday about the Terranoth in the show, the Terranoth world.
Yeah.
So this is a way to kind of have the multi-levels of game. The Descent, which is the zoomed in the dungeon, just a couple of characters, 4 heroes. Rune Wars, which is more battling, and then Runebound, which is like, I think, fantasy epic.
Yeah, it's like you're traveling between the cities, completing quests, leveling up your character.
That's a great way to campaign all that together.
Yeah.
And when you hit it on the head, because it's that world, not the world, the set of games that came from this, right? So I think the first one was Doom. FFG did Doom, which was like a dungeon crawling based on the Doom IP, and then Descent came out, which was the dungeon crawling fantasy version. Then second edition, and I love that player versus DM that it originally started as. So 5 players, 4 heroes, 1 game master with the hero quest style objective of kill the party. Like no holds bar, do everything you can, synergize and kill the whole party. That's how the DM wins. That's enjoyment. But then they turned it into the co-op side of it, right? And Wayne, that's where you brought up like Mansions of Madness, Imperial Assault, where these games get an app and now become fully cooperative. And I think that's when it really starts to hit on that co-op RPG world for me. That's how I enjoy them.
Yeah, it's a good call.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of like I talked about last episode we did with BattleTech and MechWarrior. That synergy of 2 different games coming together. You got the role-playing game with the BattleTech to explore those like different aspects of role-playing games. So.
Absolutely.
William, what do you got? We're going round robin.
Well, I'm going to kind of bite off of what Wayne just did there. He pointed out a game that has some adventure elements going around in dungeons and playing a character cooperatively, except one is the bad guy.
Oh, nice.
Conan. There's one of those great examples of a game, just like what Wayne was talking about, where one player is the bad guy or bad guys, kind of like the GM, except for unlike role-playing games. And one thing that a lot of GMs have to get past, or DMs, as it were, is the idea that they are the opponent to the player. In Dungeons and Dragons, the GM or DM is not the opponent to the player. They are in control of the world, and they're there to make sure the story is good and compelling, and the players are challenged. This game, the guy controlling the bad guys is the opponent. They do want to kill everybody else at the table. So that's the big differentiation between this and like D&D or some other role-playing game. But I haven't got this to the table yet because I don't have players that are ready for a heavier game like this. So I'm working them up to it. That's the key, working them up to it.
Isn't that nice though? As I grew up as the DM for our group, and I'm certain you guys are all here because you are DMs, but to just have that license to kill, that to be a jerk, like there's a little
rocks fall, you all die.
It's a little decompression that you need occasionally. Like, okay, I don't have to make sure the story's moving forward. I can just focus on killing these guys.
Yeah, when I played Imperial Assault, because I never did. I was never the Overlord playing Descent, but I played the Imperial side for Imperial Assault. That was just great. It was,
I'm gonna add jetpacks to my stormtroopers. This is gonna be awesome.
E-web gunners, it's great when your role is very clearly defined and everybody has that understanding at the table. And I mean that goes for board games and role-playing games, right? So cool stuff.
All right, Ron, back to you.
So I was aware. Yeah. By the way, there's like several different Conan games that I've. Well, maybe not several, but there's a couple of different Conan games I've known about because it's popular IP. And I was mentioning Realms of Terranah, and you can still bring this up, but like this book here, this is not my choice, but this is Twilight Imperium, Members of the Imperium. It is a setting book for the Genesis role-playing system, and that is the Twilight Imperium universe. So for folks that like the Twilight Imperium universe from the Twilight Imperium board game series, you got one. But so I'm limiting myself to games that I do not know that they're role playing games for, because it's easy. Like, because I'm looking at War of the Ring, that's easy. Marvel Champions. There's been several Marvel games. Star Wars, of course. Now, my next choice, however, is Western Legends, and here's why. Yeah, and that one is not cooperative, but it's a sandbox Western where you play these different legends from history, and some of them are based on like real true stories, and some of them are basically based on tall tales or what have you. And it's a sandbox game where you go. For those that are watching that haven't played these types of board games, where you can go and there's many paths to victory, whether it's mining and grabbing, earning gold and going to the saloon to spend it all on the party, or robbing trains, or catching the bad guys, or becoming a poker legend. So you can win the game that way. And I can really see a game where, since it's a role-playing game, maybe there might be some situations, scenarios where you're kind of working together, but really you're looking out for number one and trying to be the most legendary person in the Old West. And so there's a lot of good story stuff, particularly when they add in all the expansion content, because there's a lot of expansion content. But there are lots of Western games out there, but I don't think there's anything that does anything quite like that, where you have maybe a semi-cooperative type of nature. Of course, Western Legends is fully competitive, but I can see it working as a semi-cooperative type thing. Anyway.
Well, I think when you create a sandbox game like that, and somebody can go off and become the bad guy, or rob trains, or somebody can become the sheriff, you're creating a narrative. And anytime you create a narrative in a game, it allows for people to play a role, right? My character has a motivation of X, and that right there is an essence of role playing. ROLE is create a character in your head. You start creating a backstory to rationalize your actions in the game and build on that. So sandbox games are going to do that.
Yeah, these sandbox games are going to give you that world exploration feel and encounter, right? So you're looking. I think about like World of Warcraft, where you got the exclamation point on different NPCs. So you really want to go touch it to see what adventure do you have available for me, or what story do you have, and that's what these games do. You go to all these different points. Locations by points, you go to these different locations in order to have an experience. I'm going to go to the saloon so I can play some cards, so I can see if I can gamble, win some money. Or I'm going to go to the bank so that I can rob it, get some cash. Or I'm going to wait for William to start heading to the bank from the mine so that I can then rob William of all his gold.
Right.
That's the kind of fun that Western Legend style games give you.
Yeah, and I was about to say, so there's a style of role-playing game campaign called a West Marches style campaign, where Deadlands is excellent. Deadlands is
fantastic.
Where now that you bring that up, you could probably just do this in Deadlands, but West Marches is where you basically have a sandbox setting, and the players have their own goals. They're out there. They're going to go out there to explore and get rich and famous, and they'll go on different adventures. Like the different players maybe will get together and go on different adventures, but their goals are completely selfish. And this is the way old school D&D was played, where it's like Gary Gygax had a group of 50 players, but he didn't play with 50 people at the same time. But what happened is that 10 of them would get together. They would be able to play on a Thursday night, and they would get together and they go run, play an adventure. But they weren't all happy-go-lucky kumbaya. They were there to go get gold, so that they can eventually, get their land, build their keep, and get their army. Like they were in it for themselves. And so Western Legends, I could see that working where, if you had a larger group and everybody was their own legend, they were kind of doing different things, and sometimes people would come into conflict. Groups would come into conflict.
Yeah, your goals and my goals may not align.
Yeah, and so you might have to, fight that out.
I've seen Yellowstone. I know how this works.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Such a good show.
So mad about the news on that. All right, we'll go around one more time, right? So we've made it around the horn, I think, a couple times. We'll go around one more time. Make this your final, like your best. Like this is it. This is your last game.
But I actually have to drop off. So
well, I guess that was a great one to end off on. My man,
one, man.
Ron Talks
Hey, Ron,
Tabletop.
great looking
Check
game.
him out on YouTube.
All
Check
right.
him out on Instagram. Good night, Bobby.
all right. Good night, guys.
Good night, man.
Good night.
Hey, before we go forward, we did get a voicemail during Keena's call, so let me see if I can't hit play here. Will this work?
Oh no.
How you doing? This is Dreadpool. So Keena from the Nerdyweds is forcing me to do this. She's twisting my arm right now. I'm supposed to call in and talk about some games that I stream and have a similar feel to RPG. I'll tell you one right now that I love playing and I can't wait for the new one is Fable. I've been playing, and I know it's an issue because of all the glitches, but I don't care. I've been enjoying the game, and it's been Redfall. So there's quite a few games out there, and granted, these are all video games. That's
Fable's
kind of more
great.
of my specialty. But again, great show, and both of the Nerdyweds are great people. Love them, and I'm glad I found you guys.
So's Wayne.
Thank you.
Wayne's a great person too.
Occasionally.
I love you, Carlos.
Dreadpool, thank you for calling in and leaving a voicemail. Like I'm gonna, if people leave voicemails, I'll play them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fable
I'll
is
play
a
'em.
great video game for RPG. There's
Is that the
two or three of
one
them.
where you can go like light or dark?
Mhm.
Your
Yeah.
character changes based on the decisions you make.
Yeah. Yeah.
You start out you're supposed to start out as a child and you grow up into either a hero or a villain or something in between. It's
Yeah. That's a good
you
one.
Kinda
get
like,
a lot of latitude with the game.
Kind of like the game that I'm going to bring up, because I mean, there's so many games that I can bring up that are very
There's
so
tons.
close to RPG, right? Which I'm not going to go there. I'm going to end off with Call to Adventure, the Call to Adventure game, and it's. I played it with Rob. There's a video of us playing it on the channel with Armada Games. Michael from Armada brought it over to the studio. We got to play it here, so he taught it to us. Rob called it an activity, not a game. Right, so he called it more of an activity. I disagree with Rob. Right, Rob? You agree you were wrong, right, Rob? Yes, I was wrong. The Rob Cam is still here. Call to Adventure is a game where you do, like Dreadpool said, in Fable, you start off with an origin, and you're going to play cards into different slots to go from the origin of your character to the end of your character. And during that period, you're going to hit activities or events that change the dynamics of your character, the goodness of them, the evilness of them, the decisions you make. And there are tests that are made. So it's not like a challenge or a test that you're used to in most board games where you're like rolling a D6. You're flipping runes, which I thought to me was a cooler way to resolve this. Here's another Terranoth universe game called... it was the big battle one in the Terranoth world where they use runes to resolve combat. It's similar to that. You chuck these two-sided runes, and you're looking for symbols, and you're looking to meet the requirement of that event, that trigger, that encounter, to determine if you succeeded. If you do, you get to take the card and add it to your tableau. So your tableau building, which when you add to your tableau, you're adding other symbols to help you succeed in those lines of events in the future, right? So it's kind of like getting better at it, but also bad things. You can go towards bad things, like you can rob people or you can steal, right? Depending on what the events are that come up, and you have to start playing with this tug of war track on good versus light. And as you start getting more towards the dark side, you lose access to taking cards and events that are good side. Like you start losing that goodness. So and at the end of the game, there is a way to win. There's and I'm not remembering. That's how good the game was. I'm not even remembering who won or how they won. It was at the end of the game. I could tell you a narrative of I started as an orphan. I dealt with these situations in my life, and it led to me coming out to this type of a person where I ended up being a hero, right? And to the point where they took that game system and they went Stormlight Archives with it. Branson.
Yeah, I have the Stormlight Archive version of the game because I'm a huge Brando Sando fan.
Oh, I'm getting deep into it now, but I want that version because that series is all about the arc of characters either falling or redeeming themselves. So it fits really well with that game style. And then they
Really
also
does.
created their epic one, which is much more standard fantasy. And they even say, like, use this epic call to adventure to create your next D&D character. Like, this is how you use this game to create your origin story for your next RPG character. So that's how much fun I enjoy Call to Adventure. I recommend it for RPG adjacent, and the piece that you're going to get out of it isn't combat, isn't character like classing or anything like that. It's origin story. Like, that's the piece of the RPG world that you can taste when you play Call to Adventure.
Okay. Cool.
Wayne, have you played it?
No.
All right, I'm going to have to buy it.
I need to. Yeah.
Nobody else has bought it. Nobody else has desired it.
I have the Call to Adventure Stormlight Archive, but if you are interested in reading the books, do not get the game until you've read the books, at least the first two.
Okay, I've read the first two. I'm on book 3.
Yeah, you don't want to play.
Safe.
I would say, sorry, book 3, I think, because the game came out around book 3. So there are some things come in the game, including the main villain, that don't come up in the first 2 books of the series. So, yeah.
How's the art? So I'll give you. Here's why I ask. Red Rising is another book series.
Well, you can bring it up.
Red Rising was another book series I enjoyed, and what I loved about the board game or the card game that Jamie Stegmaier did is being able to see the characters in portraits to start to put like a vision to it.
Yeah.
Will Call to Adventure do that for you? Allow you to do that?
Yeah.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
I mean, if we look right here.
Oh, we get a tour of his house. Look at this. Cribs with William.
These are all Knights Radiant from the Stormlight Archive.
Oh, wow. This came out of the box?
No, this didn't come with that. This came with the
you broke the copyright
anniversary
cards.
10-year anniversary edition of the first book. Kickstarter. It was actually the biggest Kickstarter in Kickstarter's history.
Oh yeah, that giant thing he did.
Yeah, it was $500. I got it, and it came with all those cool posters and prints. Beautiful artwork. But the actual game is in my computer room right now.
Very cool. So. I want the epic one so that I can use it to like create origin stories for
I like that
generic
idea.
fantasy.
Yeah.
See, there's the role player game. And I absolutely hated that game.
I hated
because
it too.
It's the worst part of playing D&D.
I hated it too.
Making a character sheet is the worst part of D&D.
I called it. I fell asleep playing that one, I believe, at Dice Tower with Rob.
I believe that.
But I also called it balancing your checkbook, the board game. It felt like it's just all about putting numbers in places.
Well, yeah,
I don't get why it's so popular.
Yeah, the math of creating a D&D character sucks. For me, though, building the narrative is what's important. Like, usually when I do character creation as GM, I have like a 10-question thing. I'll create 10 questions for that somewhat specific to the game world, where answer these 10 questions and you'll have your character, and then from there you do the math and make the actual character sheet up. But yeah, so I do that. So it's up to me now. Is I'm gonna cheat a little here, Carlos, and I'm gonna give a company and not necessarily a game, but because when I talk about RPGs, to me it's all about narrative. It's all about the theme and developing a character. And so when I think of games that I've played where I've taken a character and created a persona for that character and played it, and then afterwards we've talked about it, like you remember that time we played the game and your character did this and whatever. And so that's like an RPG setting to me. And so Flying Frog Productions has games that when I've played them, I've created characters, right? And so you have Shadow of Brimstone, you have Last Night on Earth, and you have oh god, my brain, Fortune and Glory.
Yeah.
And those games you play and you create a narrative for your character. And so you play Fortune and Glory and you're Indiana Jones, or you're Hollow Earth Expedition, you're fighting the Nazis, you're fighting the mob. There's a narrative and story arc in the game that you create as you play it. Now, granted, it's just you moving a figure around a map, rolling a couple of dice, flipping a card, and you get the treasure or not, right? You could do that. Or you can create a story around how your character got there and how they got involved in the game. And so I'll throw those games out there as games that, they're mere trashy games that we don't like to use that. We don't use that term as much anymore because it's such a crossover, but those kind of games create narrative because all you're doing is rolling dice. And yeah, you could just roll the dice and whatever. But if you create a narrative, you create a story, create a background, tell a tale while you play, it makes the game so much more enjoyable. So those are mine.
Flying Frog, we talked about it
Yeah,
yesterday during the show.
I did. Threw it back out
Because
there.
it was one of the companies that I really enjoyed because of their distinct art style. Like
Right.
And their game Last Night on Earth was one of the games that I used to get a lot of people into this hobby because it allowed for 1v1, 1v2, 2v2, 2v3, like humans versus zombies. And it's just fun Ameritrash, chuck dice, kill zombie, beat the adventure, almost like an RPG field. Here's the setting, here's the location. You need to find the keys to the truck, then take the truck to go fuel it, then from the fueling of the truck, then you can escape. Right? So there's that narrative arc. Flying Frog does it really well.
And that's why I think what's cool is a lot of the games we've talked about tonight are not the most common games. Like you would think, oh, we're going to talk about Gloomhaven. We're going to talk about Adventures in Middle Earth. We're going to talk about Pathfinder, the card game.
Yeah, I was trying to get through the whole show without saying
Gloomhaven.
But I'm saying we haven't. Like we've ignored those because those are the easy answers. I think what we've talked about tonight is games that build narrative without that popularity.
And this is why you guys are here. We're not here for the cheap theater. We're going deeper than the surface.
Yeah.
Great call out. Flying Frog Productions, except for Wayne cheats all the time. He does it every time. Whenever you ask Wayne, when we ever have a question, Wayne's like, well, I know you asked this, but I'm going to reject your question and insert my own.
Yeah. If you want to narrow it down, I'll say Fortune and Glory.
But it's okay. The company works.
But the company
I reject your reality and substitute my own.
Exactly.
So, and Willie, that means you get to close us out with your last RPG adjacent game that you want to share with the folks.
I mean, I could do this all night.
And that's what I knew.
This topic's been great. So I'm going to go a little different than what we've done in the last few times, talking about games that could give role-playing kind of feel. I'm going to go with one that allows you to explore a little bit of a role-playing game world. Now, Shadowrun is actually crossed over to multiple different mediums, including novels, video games, and board games. This particular board game here is the example I wanted to give, is a kind of a legacy deck builder, where you have a character who is a class within the role-playing game, going out and completing missions and building their stats and getting new cards and new abilities. And when you sit down to play the next game, you get to bring some of that experience with you. So this is Shadowrun's Crossfire.
In the next game, you get to bring cards with you?
Yeah, you get to bring your deck with you as well, I believe. I could be wrong. I think that there are abilities you can bring with you, but not the cards. It's been a while since I played it. This was a recent acquisition, and I can't wait to get it back at the table. But here's a character sheet here.
Okay.
You get to put your name in here on this side. Name, and then you get slots here to add skills that make your character more powerful, along with gaining like HP and other things. And it just a really fun card deck builder game that you're trying to complete missions against bad guys in the game, and you're helping each other. It's cooperative. It's a cooperative game where all the players are members of a group of runners that are going out on missions and helping each other. And I love that. I love cooperative games and board games. There's something special about just sticking it to the guy next to you, but it's really special to play a game like Pandemic, where the odds are not in your favor and you beat the game as a team, and the game is purely out to get you. There's no player trying to play against you. It's purely the game and RNG that's trying to screw you over a little bit. But that is Shadowrun Crossfire. Again, it's set in the really cool role-playing world of Shadowrun, which is another FASA game. I seem to have a lot of FASA and Palladium, but yeah, I love the FASA worlds.
So I like how the board game could basically introduce someone to the game world,
Mhm.
and they play the game. They go, "This is kind of cool," and you could take the character here and recreate it, and then we could do our own thing.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And if you're playing both together, like maybe simultaneously or back to back or rotationally, it helps the players that maybe aren't as into that IP, that world, to see different events in that world. Okay, these are these type of bad guys, these are these type of missions, these are these type of locations, and it can help them drive them into being more narrative driven in the RPG world.
It can also help.
I may not be familiar with Shadowrun as a world, but if I played the board game a few times, I can start to recognize that world itself.
Well, I can actually explain to everybody the world. It's kind of cool that it is essentially cyberpunk plus Dungeons and Dragons. There was a big cataclysm that happened in the world, and that cataclysm killed so many people. It's kind of the same kind of similar origin to Rifts, the Palladium Rifts role-playing game. That cataclysm unleashed so much meta energy into the world that it actually spawned magic back into the world. And I believe that's the same thing that happened in Shadowrun, but I know it happened in Rifts. I might be confusing the two stories. But around puberty, young people started turning into orcs, trolls, elves, dwarves, and chaos.
Wasn't there was a Will Smith movie on Netflix that was basically
Yeah, basically Shadowrun. Really terrible movie called Blight. Yeah, or Bright.
It wasn't
I never
terrible.
I mean, I never actually watched it. I need to watch. It was on my list.
It's good.
Watch my mouth. He'll come slap me.
It's good. Like there's an opening scene with Will Smith, right? He's a cop in this world, and due to affirmative action, they have to bring now orcs in to the police force.
Police, yeah.
Right? Because the orcs are the baddies, right? And how most fantasy tropes go.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets partnered up with the first orc law enforcement officer. So that's like the idea behind it. It's getting past those stereotypes of elves good, orcs bad.
It's a darker version of Zootopia.
Yes.
I was gonna say,
oh my God, I never thought of it that way.
Will Smith as a cop having to get over his prejudice sounds like
But
iRobot.
like one of the scenes, like the opening scene,
iRobot.
There's this bug light, right? Like a bug zapper light, but it's there for fairies, like to zap fairies because they're so annoying. Like, so like that opening scene alone, and like the orcs are very much. I'm gonna say it because I'm brown. I can say it, I guess. Like vatos, like Chicano Latinos, kind of like dressed to them, like the LA gangster style to the orcs. It's not that it's not too horrible. in the
Not too
words
horrible.
of
It's a
D6
good-
generation.
it's a
not
good,
too horrible.
Not too horrible.
I liked the world that they created. I liked the story to a point, and at some point it kind of jumped the shark. I really love the world. I would love to see more in it. Obviously, I love the world. It's
Right.
Shadowrun light, really. They have elves, humans, and orcs. They're missing the trolls, the dwarves, and all that, and they would have Shadowrun. Yeah, Kina.
Kina liked it. I'm with Kina.
Kina like Bright.
I told you she's the better half. I told you.
No,
Yeah.
that Shadowrun's one of my favorites from my my childhood. Did a
See,
lot of
for me, I got introduced to that style of world when D20 Modern came out, because one of the settings in D20 Modern was that exact setting. There's a rift, and the magical world has crossed into our world, and you got kobolds running a McDonald's, right? It's but most people can't see it because their eyes are still kind of covered up. They just see like short immigrants with bad teeth, right? When really they're just kobolds. But something happens to people at a certain time, puberty or otherwise, where their eyes are opened up and they can see around them. Like, that's a bugbear gangster, not just a big dude.
Yeah.
I love
That's
that
how
world.
Werewolf attacks in Werewolf the Apocalypse from White Wolf, as we discussed last week or last month. When a werewolf attack happens, people, their brain can't handle what they saw, and their brain will it's a ability of werewolves to cause people to rationalize it into bear attacks or some other animal. Yeah,
Makes sense.
Yep. So it looks like Ron Fraser, Bright is Urban Arcana from D20 Modern and Shadowrun. So there you go, Carlos.
There it is.
But he also agrees, good setting, not a great movie though.
Yep. I knew I liked
too
Ron
horrible.
for a reason. I knew I liked Ron for a reason.
Well, for you folks at home, I'm posting this up as a podcast. I'm posting it up, the video itself. I'm going to provide William and Ron a copy of the video for them to use however they see fit. But if you folks at home like what we're doing, be sure to comment, to like, let us know that this is something that you want us to continue to do. It takes a lot of effort and energy to get 4 grown adults with busy lives together on a Friday night to do something like this. So if you want us to keep doing it, please share and let us know. So
Yeah,
that
I'm
we
missing
can
Diablo for
prioritize
this.
it. See, Chad Stilson, my favorite RPG feeling game is Star Wars Outer Rim.
Yeah.
I'm surprised
Check out
Ron hasn't
Firefly.
popped in.
Firefly. I was gonna put Firefly in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Check out
Aren't they
Firefly the
redoing? I
game.
just saw that they're redoing Firefly.
Oh yeah. It's like an all-inclusive, everything ever printed in one box.
Oh, that's really cool.
It's on GameFound. So cool. I
Good job,
enjoyed
Chad
it.
Stilson. Thank you. Yes,
Thank you.
Wayne, thank you for joining us. William, thank you for joining us. Ron, our buddy at home, dealing with the sick family at home. Thank you for popping in and saying hi. You folks at home, if you liked what we do here, please like, subscribe, comment, tell us, yes, you want more of this. Yes, you want to see this, do this again. That way I know that we're putting our energy in the right place. Otherwise, join us on Thursday nights for our live call-in show every Thursday night where we take your phone calls and talk generally board games and tabletop. Don't be afraid to call the call-in show to talk about RPGs. Like we everyone's accepted in the board game call-in show. We talk all types of tabletop stuff.
Nice.
Hey, real quick, make sure everybody who's listening checks out the Nerdyweds. We're doing a push to 500 and a 500 subscriber giveaway. We have a video on the channel detailing that giveaway, and one of the prizes is Viticulture Essential Edition.
Great title.
Yep, it's Kina's favorite. So,
And William's giving it away.
well, we're
'Cause he
getting a
doesn't like
copy.
sleeping with both eyes closed.
Well, we have the big box Viticulture World.
You
thing.
got the crate?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got the crate.
Yeah, Wayne got the crate.
Yeah.
I controlled myself. Good night, folks. Thanks for
no
watching.
control.
We will catch you all on the next one, Thursday Night Live Call-In Show. Wednesdays, we post Wayne and Mitch's podcast just at least every Wednesday or every other Wednesday. So lots of content coming from the Beans and Dice Show. Thank you for watching. Good night, everybody.
Thanks for watching the Beans and Dice podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe.